cutting edge guests, awesome, uncensored, jaw-dropping information, plus funny memes, good deeds, and loads of laughter. Kind of have it all. Ladies and gentlemen, if your soul's awake, then welcome, because you're in the right place. All right, welcome back, all of you divine lions and lionesses, to the Shield of the Americas show. This is truly incredible. If you remember, it's only been 5 days. This is March 7th, when President Trump met with 12 of the 17 delegates, heads of the nations of Latin and Central America. Not present, of course, is Canada and Mexico here, but you can see President Trump happily smiling alongside them. And this is very powerful and important, because with President Trump and the Shield of the Americas, it's raising major questions about Iran, Cuba, Canada, and the deeper geopolitical endgame, which is now unfolding across the Western Hemisphere. So I'm going to break down for you some of the power moves we've seen, pressure points which have been applied, and why many believe, and the Donro Doctrine now, but the Monroe Doctrine, reborn as a Donro Doctrine, it's far more aggressive. It's incredibly necessary, because it is hastening, it is speeding up freedom and liberty for families and happiness in communities throughout the Western Hemisphere, with exception to Venezuela, of course, right? So let's just dive deep into this. Now, this was held and it was completed a week ago in Miami. That was with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. You had General Raising Cane, who was present. You had Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who is there, Scavino, it looks like, as well, and then President Trump delivering the remarks, right? Take out the narco terrorists. We will eradicate them. Now, anything that's classified as narco terrorism, that goes to fentanyl, right? Coke, meth. Do you remember that program that Trudeau launched in British Columbia? Free fentanyl, cocaine, and meth. Free. And now you go from there to Kelowna, British Columbia, and you have homeless encampments all across areas of the province. And then you also have, and excuse me for the lighting, obviously you can see the background has changed. I'm in a different place, and this is all we have for lighting at the moment. And with those homeless encampments, you have a massive increase in crime. In fact, it was just announced this week that the police allowed 2 people who were arrested with 17.2 pounds of fentanyl. I think that's enough to kill like 25 million people. They arrested them in Canada and let them go free. There you go. You're free, right? So it's very, very important. We're going to go into that a lot more deeper here, because President Trump, with the Board of Peace, he is known as the deal maker in chief, right? And there's a lot of validation to that fact. And I've been traveling, by the way, it is now 7 days straight. So I've got my zero in from Root. I've got my Restore. I'm going to have to take it. I haven't done it yet this morning. My Pure Wave cell. Now I'll show all. I've already unboxed it and leveraged this for 2 days. I've received it. It's incredible. If you saw our 4RB show, had the honey today as well. It's amazing. And yes, I'm wearing all the patches, and I'm telling you, like, I'm still crushing it by comparison of 7 days straight, being in a different hotel or place for 6 of 7 straight nights, and traveling thousands of miles in airports and compressed air cabins of airlines with some very, very, very sick people. Some that are sick in the head because they're still wearing the mask cards, which we appreciate, because I don't want any of that stuff breathing on us and shedding, but very, very sick people all around. There were very few healthy people I ever saw, and that would just be in a physical state. You don't know what they've taken, right? So here we are. Now, before we get into Shield of Americas, I received a text from Scott Shara today, and you remember him with his incredible book that just released. I hope you all got a copy of it to support him with grace and his incredible ties to it. But let me take you over here, because he was just on RFK Jr.'s Children's Health Defense TV. Here's the show. I'll take us right over there from the text message Scott sent us. And congratulations, Scott, for having the book of everybody, just so you know, Is Government Legally Killing Us book is now the top #1 new release on the Amazon store in criminology. And there it is. So here you have it on RFK Jr.'s Children's Health Defense, Scott's interview, who was just on here a few days ago. And it says, bears ties to power, plus is the government legally killing us, plus advocacy lifeline. In this edition of Good Morning Children's Health Defense, U.S. Right to Know's investigation of Bear's lobbying operation. And by now you've heard the story of Grace Shara, but do you really understand the true depth of the broken medical system that sanctioned her death? In this episode, Scott explains how he documented and researched what happened to his daughter, obviously, and he also set legal precedent around the world for being able to go after the doctors, nurses, and anesthesiologists, as well as the administrators at the hospital in Wisconsin called Ascension Health, for hastening death and being complicit in medical murder. So you can watch that entire show, because 1.4 million Americans, they estimate, I think it was monthly, are murdered in hospitals. So you are 6 times more likely to be murdered in a hospital in America than to be killed with a gun. And they're trying to do a gun grab in Canada, right? But we already know that. The statistics that were reported last week are right now that you have over 100,000 Canadians who were murdered, euthanized under the MAID program. That now has approached or eclipsed that of the Nazi Holocaust and what they did in Germany for euthanizing people. So look at that mark right there. This is another reason why Shield of the Americas is extremely important to secure the Western Hemisphere, not only under the Golden Dome, but once again, to hasten, to speed up, expedite freedom, liberty, happiness, peace, and prosperity for your family and for your communities everywhere. So congratulations to Scott. I'll just post that link right here in the chat for everybody, so you have that direct. And yes, RFK Jr. is well aware of it, because RFK Jr. had worked with Scott on Vaxxed 3, and Scott's story was in Grace's story, per Scott, Grace's father, was in Vaxxed 3, and that was produced and that came out right before RFK Jr. made his run for president. And they're still working together at Children's Health Defense. So now let's go to Iran, right? And how this works. You have the sanctuary of the absolute deep state on the planet in Iran, where Obama gave him $150 billion of American taxpayer money. 150 billion was given to Iran from Obama, from American taxpayer money, the federal printing press. And in that deep state, now for those of you who are spiritually awake, not just patriot awake, you're very much aware that there are other things going on in Iran and below the surface than just what would be presented as a human species, right? We're talking galactic, extremely nefarious entities and demons, negative entities and demons, all working together. So here we have it, where just reported 48 hours ago by Department of War in the White House that the FAFO has been entirely active. There are 60 ships, Iranian naval ships and support ships, which have been destroyed. 60. So the biggest naval battle, and it wasn't so much a battle, but there's 140 Americans, soldiers, sailors, airmen, you name it, across the board, who have been injured, and 7 at KIA in this conflict already, right? Not to say then there's also the civilians, because the Iranians were firing drones, and still are, into oil fields, oil factories, residential neighborhoods, residential buildings in Dubai, the Barrage Al Khalifa. I saw a video there. I believe that one was hit as well, because they're full-on terrorists. Well, 5,500 targets destroyed is what the Trump White House reported so far. 5,500 destroyed. And then we saw just 2 days ago, the MOP was dropped. Now that is the former Moab, massive bomb. The MOP is called the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. It is the most lethal below an atomic weapon that was dropped to destroy a massive dumb missile site, right? Deep underground military base. And now they're going after the storage sites. So this is a great little funny meme that came up here because the new Ayatollah, who they actually, Iranian media reported, was severely injured in a strike, is still out talking. And this is what everybody is believing is just a cardboard puppet head. So here you have, he comes to negotiate off a plane for peace with the dealmaker in chief, with Trump, right? It's absolutely hilarious. And that's where we are right now. So that will continue. And it's absolutely necessary, right? They have already, in Iran issued yesterday, they said that we will take out every American bank across the Middle East. It doesn't matter. They didn't take them out, but they shot a missile into a vessel from Thailand in the Strait of Hormuz, a civilian vessel, just a normal merchant ship. So they're just indiscriminate terrorists. So there you go. You have it, right? Whether they've declared you an enemy or not, they're just shooting everybody. And you already know that. So here we are. Board of Peace is active. And when we move over to Cuba, so let's remember that over a week ago, there was a massive power failure blackout in Cuba. And that went on for days. And then people took to the streets because banks were down, no electricity, no power, no running water. They're already pretty much starved out of food, depending on your job and where you are right now. So here we have, was all this, we have some rage scrollers in here, everybody. So soul trolls, that's just how you are. We'll get rid of a soul troll because in an information age where you can fact check, and you can back check it, and then you can see in the FOIA request, it's already there, then they're just simply a soul troll and ignorant, right? Complete normie. So make sure they read the disclaimer that we have on our shows, right? It's all good. YouTube doesn't like our disclaimer, of course, but Rommel loves it. Yeah. So anyway, where we are with Cuba. Yeah, Marco Rubio, remember, he is of Cuban descent. So he is Cuban-born American citizen, fled Cuba, and now he is negotiating for that because what they've been putting out since February from Trump and to Rubio at the State Department is that, we're there to help, and the Cuban regime is collapsing. So people have been in the streets all across the country for days and days on end, chanting peace, down with communism, we're done, President Trump, come save us. It's absolutely incredible, right? And this is another great meme that kind of sums it up. Trump is giving a conference at the White House, number 47 doing the Cuba Libre. You have Marco Rubio over there. You have Hegseth, Secretary of War. He's got those good old curls. Gotta love that. And then you got Vance just standing beside there being Vance. So it is what it is, right? It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So that is coming, and it's already underway. It's just not out there in the broad public spectrum, right? And where people think about America and their presence, remember Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba, and there is an additional $500 million, which was just injected last month via the Pentagon to build more facilities, $500 million, build out that military prison with more courtrooms, military tribunals, and room for the press corps to cover the military tribunals. So remember, right now, there is a civilian tribunal, not a military one, going on in the Netherlands, which just broke for their recess until April to come back. We have Bill Gates, Albert Bourla, head of Pfizer, and Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, before Larry Fink just took his place at BlackRock. They are being tried for war crimes for pushing the jabs. And of course, COVID-19 is classified a weapon of biological, radiological, technological destruction. Well, we know that, and again, I estimate based on everything you see math-wise, the likelihood of the war crimes that have been committed there, plus the crimes against children, plus the crimes for narco trafficking and that type of terrorism, there's about 100 million people, in my conservative estimate, And this goes all the way down to school board trustees and teachers, nurses, hospital administrators, to even might have been an Uber driver as well, right? Who will all be arrested and will need to have their day in the spotlight via military tribunal, because these are war crimes, international crimes against humanity, crimes against children, all of those sectors, right? So politicians, businesses, you name it, all across the board. Media, TV, radio, it applies. You all know, you get it, right? And so this takes us then to Venezuela. So Cardi is not a great meme. It's really also unfortunate too. So it says, I don't care if 2.2 million Canadians need food banks every month. I'm still giving 100 grand to foreign students. And I think the number is actually higher than 2.2 million right now in across Canada that are on the food stamps. Remember, those food stamps also include, as we saw in the statistics from last year, that since 2015, Canada imported 1/3 of its population. So it's estimated to be about 38 million, people strong right now, or on the voter rolls or census, you name it. 1/3 of those were brought in, imported. And we have, well, actually, I've got some video clips here we'll go to. So it's just incredible in terms of what is necessary to take down the monsters everywhere. And this is a global operation, right? And let's go back to the reason why it's a global operation. Here's a video clip that was just aired yesterday in EU Parliament. And let me just set it up for you. I'll take you right over there, because what's being faced in the Western Hemisphere is virtually all around the world, except Russia. Doesn't seem that Russia has many of these problems, does it? But they did build 3,500 Orthodox Christian churches, and they classified President Putin's regime leadership, classified genetically modified foods as domestic terrorism. And they also classified any crimes against children, rape of children, as well. Then that individual is, you do that, you're going to be at minimum castrated chemically if you rape a child. So a lot of right things going on over there. So here is the clip in EU Parliament by this guy. I don't know his name, but he is just sending it and lighting them up. Here it is, minute and 14 seconds.
You must have lost your mind. In Spain, they just legalized residence of 500,000 illegal aliens. In France, they throw grenades into hair salons in a broad daylight. In Germany, not a single day.
Do you hear that? In France, they're throwing hand grenades into salons, hair salons, in broad daylight. In Spain, just took in 500,000 immigrants, we know who they are, and made them citizens of Spain. That's what he's talking about. So we'll continue here.
Day goes by without someone being murdered with a knife. In Sweden, for example, you have bomb attack every other day. I can continue, but you just don't care. Those are not real problems for the European left-wing politicians. No, you are going to solve the situation in Minnesota. You are seriously discussing here the rule of law in United States and criticizing American government for deporting illegal aliens, for deporting criminals out of their territory in the same time when Western European cities are gradually turning into a war zones. We should do exactly the same. We should deport them from Europe and not legalize their stay. We should listen to them and not what you are proposing to all of us. Everybody can see now you are enemies of Europe. You hate Europe, you hate our nations, and you want to destroy the future for our children. We should stop you. We should defeat you politically if we want to survive. Otherwise, it will be the end of Europe.
There you go. Yep. How would you like to have people who stand up like that speak like that, right? That would be wonderful. That's exactly what we need everywhere across the planet. So remember, President Trump was at Davos and he warned Europe, and he said, look, my descent is Scottish, my mother, and German, my father. So I am of European descent, and Europe used to be a beautiful place, and you have destroyed it. Destroyed it. You need to turn these policies back. You need to secure and save your people, just like we've seen with Hungary, the president there, as well as Poland now returning and outlawing and secure borders, right? And now they are the most free in Europe, all that part of the Europe and the European Union, Poland, because they're taking these very simple common sense measures and doing this. It's pretty powerful. So really appreciate Milan for that one. Now let's go. You might have heard, right? 2 days ago, the US consulate was shot up at 5:30 in the morning in Toronto. US consulate. So, you know, two guys, it's already been authenticated and reported by police. Can you really believe what they're saying these days? No. So you got to go check out other sources, which, by the way, you can just go to the State Department and see what they've issued so that you can verify that, because you can't effing trust anything that comes out of the mainstream, whatever, even if it says police on it. Remember, police is policy enforcement. A sheriff is constitutional law. So in America, under the Republic, a sheriff has the highest authority. He has the highest authority in the land to enforce the constitutional law. Police is policy enforcement, bylaws, acts, statutes. So if you're a citizen and you're in the corporation and you have these little, you know, rules that have been set up, like a house rule, right? Like, hey, go pee in the toilet, don't pee in the corner. That's a rule. And may make it a little bylaw. I mean, that's of course common sense. You use the toilet. That's an extreme, but these days people need to be reminded of that. So with that, what was going on in Canada, 2.2 million. Here's a picture of last month at the Calgary Co-op of $18 slice of a quarter watermelon. So that's 72 bucks for a watermelon at the Calgary Co-op. There's $18.28 on one quarter slice right there. And the other one is $17, I think 58 cents. So 72 bucks for a watermelon in Calgary, or $150 for a pound of steak. Excuse me, it's $150 for a kilogram of steak in Toronto. So we love this little troll that Trump was doing of Carney a couple days ago on True Social. And here's what he says, right? Even though you can see the highlighted aspect of it. I'm working with Governor Gretchen Whitmer on trying to save the Great Lakes from the rather violent or destructive Asian carp, which is rapidly taking over Lake Michigan and all of the beautiful surrounds. I'll be asking other governors to join in this fight, including those of Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, New York, and of course, the future governor of Canada, Mark Carney, who I know will be happy to contribute to this worthy cause. And then he talks about what's going on in Great Salt Lake. So there you are. Trump continuing to troll. It was awesome, right? And like he said, whoever chuckles over here, soul troll, Trump said he was German descent and Scottish descent. You know, pay attention, soul trolls that are out there. But anyway, that's just what soul trolls do, right? So what we've got else here is we had that was shot up in the consulate, and we have, you know, Governor Carney and DGT. We have another great pick, which was put out there, reposted by Table Salt. And I think this is fantastic. Feel free to take a picture of this and share it all around, because this is a picture. And I remember watching this press conference. And again, they're just showing you who they are, right? Once again, this is from months ago in the summertime when Carney was there at the Muslim Association of Canada and said, these are Muslim values. These are Canadian values. And they've titled this picture, Ayatollah Khamenei, the new supreme leader of Iran. That's courtesy of Table Salt on X. Pretty powerful stuff and pretty awesome stuff, right? Fantastic. So what we also have here too are continuing with the lamestream that people are still tied into, because you see the woke retards going off. We have a couple of them in the chat. It's great to see some of the people here who are taking care of them in the comments. Well done. Stand your ground. Hold the line. And here's Marty up north, unacceptable fact checker. Fact, effects of alcohol, heroin, cocaine, and CBC. Which one's more dangerous? Oh my gosh, it's so great. If you know what happened, then you very much realize how funny this meme is. But those who are holding up, like Marty up north is in Calgary, are they're doing the Republic of Alberta, and they are authentic they have their ability to get people to sign the petition. You know, they're legal. They have their little placard that's hanging around their necks. They're with Alberta Elections, and they have been verified by Elections Canada. And then they just had another woman who came up, tried to run him over in front of two cops. RCMP were there. She slammed into another car, tore off, threw a stop sign, and then the cops had to go chase her. And these reports, they started happening a couple of weeks ago. You know, every week go by, there'd be a report. There's two in the last 3 days. Yeah, absolutely. They're retards, 100% retards. But you know what? It's not going to change who they are, because that's where they are from a standpoint of their mental capacity, right? They're not going to change, and it just is what it is. What I also appreciate is we have seen in Nathan Phillips Square that we have people chanting Trump's name as a thank you for freedom, which is absolutely incredible. I'm going to show you the video here right now, just queuing it up, and then we'll get right over to it. Now, this again, by the way, this is courtesy of Ryan Garrettson posting this on X. This was last week at Nathan Phillips Square, so Toronto City Hall, just outside it, screaming, "Thank you, Trump." YMCA. So you had people with the Iranian flag, Israel flags, American flags, and Western Canada flags, all here at Nathan Phillips Square. Yeah. We're doing the temple. Amazing. I'll do that. We're doing Trump. As Ryan said, this must be driving all the TDS sufferers nuts. That's fantastic, right? Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, that's great. You know, the funny thing too is you got all the elbows up people, or the so-called conservative people, or the NDPs. Remember, where does the word politics originates from, right? It's the derivation of two words, poly, which means many, and ticks, which means parasites. So you have many parasites. That's politics. They put them together. And those who just choose to ignore the fact that anybody that has a social insurance number in Canada, that they're registered with Vital Statistics out of Thunder Bay, Ontario, if you're in the eastern region of Canada, mid to eastern region, or out in British Columbia, but Vital Statistics then registers you in Washington, D.C. Why do they do that? Because the Canada Crown Corporation was founded July 1, 1867 in Washington, D.C. And when you look under Washington, D.C. law and other laws of other states like Texas, they acknowledge that anybody who is a Canadian citizen is actually an American, including any state, province, or territory in what is known as Canada is an American territory. But they refuse that. It's all there in writing. They can go to Washington, D.C. They can go online. They can see this. They can look at securitiesandexchange.gov, which proves this fact that they're actually all Americans. And they've been Americans before the USA Incorporated 1871 came around and took the corporation was superseding the republic at that point in time. So if you just want to have fun with people who choose to turn a blind eye to fact, that's all there right before them. When you go looking at that, just point all that out. Go, well, you're already American. It's going to happen. You know, just remember masks, jabs, all the other stuff. Freedom Convoy, banks, you name it, right? They may not want to come around to it, but you can't get around the fact that anybody who is Canadian is actually an American right now if you have a social insurance number. So congratulations to all those who are elbows up. Canada's not for sale. It's a corporation. It was for sale, and then it came back under the American corporation. So there you go. It's all there. It's all amazing to watch people's heads explode, right? Meanwhile, those who are supporting that type of thing are also supporting pedophilia and they're supporting the absolute terrorism. Now, remember, it was CSIS themselves who even went into Parliament with one of the CSIS agents and lead inspectors and said there were over 4,000. This is 3 years ago, 2022, actually 4 years ago, that they had reports of 4,000 criminal cartel networks and organized crime gangs who are operating in Canada. 4,000 of them. Yeah, astronomical aviation. You're absolutely right. It was 32,000 is what the State Department reported, but 39,000, that would make sense. And that 32,000, by the way, was in that 1 week, just 3 weeks ago. They gunned them all down at a protest. It was absolutely massive, just crazy. So we'll go over here and you take a look at this little bit of a report and I think he did a great job putting this all together. Let me just cue it up for you, turn some sound on, and get it going.
Iran's supreme leader is dead, President Trump says, killed overnight in a massive joint airstrike campaign by the U.S. and Israel.
There's an estimated 700 Iranian agents living in Canada.
So that's a member of parliament, and she's on the conservative politics, many parasites, right? And she even said it, right? There's an estimated 700 Iranian agents in Canada. Let's just play that for you again, right here.
And Israel.
There's an estimated 700 Iranian agents living in Canada.
You are working for the Iranian regime. What are you doing in Canada?
The National, the CBC, the National, so the Communist Broadcasting Corporation, and then Global News even, like, it's all there. It's right on the lamestream even posting that.
The Border Services Agency has accused a 20th person in Canada of having been a top Iranian official.
I would call that a crisis. There have been actions on Canadian soil which have been foiled. This experience in and of itself may well prove to be a kind of galvanizing or sort of hardening factor.
What are the risks, like a regular Canadian? Are they at all at risk here in Canada of these sleeper cells?
The United States.
So this guy, he does a great job. Ali Canton Nantel did a great job with this story. Fantastic work. If you're watching, well done, Ali. Fantastic work as well. So again, those who are saying Canada's not for sale, we must remain, right? That's what they're supporting. What else are they supporting? Well, here you are. Let's just take this from yesterday. The clip was repurposed from Tuesday in Parliament. Let me take you over here and share the screen with you. Now, remember what's happening in Venezuela. It's happening around the world. You know, UK continues, Ireland. We just saw the European Union, Australia, New Zealand. Ricardo Bossi, Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bossi, head of Australia One Party, continues to share all of this. Here we are. So Bruce Monaghan, a clearly shaken up Melissa Lanceman, explains that hundreds of IRGC terrorists are freely living it up in Canada, terrorizing Iranian Canadians and Jewish Canadians with impunity. Elbows up liberals could care less as shots ring out daily at Jewish communities and businesses. Canada is now one of the global leaders in attacks on Jewish citizens. Sickening. So let's hear what she says in this. It's 2 minutes, probably go for just a minute.
There have always been conflicts abroad, and rarely have we seen them spill into our streets the way that we have since this Liberal government has been in power. We now know from the Iranian community right across the country, from many others, that there are hundreds of IRGC agents presently on Canadian soil, using Canada as a safe haven to organize and to fundraise and to terrorize diaspora communities right here at home. We have seen now critics of the Iranian regime from out west, an investigation now being treated as a homicide, somebody who is critical of that regime. We see constantly, particularly as an MP from a region who represents many in that community on a weekly basis, those calls coming into our office, informing MPs and at all levels of government, including authorities, that they are terrified of living within their own communities. The hundreds of agents that are here today live in Canada with complete impunity, and we have a Liberal government that has done absolutely nothing to stop it. We've seen violence against businesses, gunshots into Iranian activist businesses. We've seen terrorism in the Jewish community. We now are amongst nations that lead the world in attacks against Jewish institutions.
Here you go. Now, what have we got? We've been calling this out for years, everything right across the board. Remember, once again, Canada is a business entity. It is not a nation. There is a difference between country, and nation, sovereign nation. A sovereign nation is a republic, not a country. Business entities are countries. And everybody who has a social insurance number, you're registered and part of the American corporation. Whether you live in Ontario, Newfoundland, Saskatchewan, you name it. Oh, and by the way, Joe Rogan is picking up on China again. Here is Joe Rogan talking about this new aspect on the podcast. April 13th is coming down the pipe, everybody. Here it is. And Joe Rogan. The title of it says, Canada is looking to regulate podcasts. It's terrifying. They want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening to the government. Trudeau, that's dictatorship stuff. It's banned public stuff. And this was just a few days ago. He got the wrong guy, but he got the mentor of Justin Trudeau, Carney.
Oh yeah, and I was reading about what they're doing. It's terrifying. So they want to bring in this bill whereby they regulate podcasts. So what they want to do is every podcast streamer or whatever it is platform that makes more than $10 million revenue, not profit, revenue, has to register with the Canadian government. They then want them to hand over information about their content and the people listening to their oh my God. to the government.
That's right. So even the soul trolls who are in the chat, the government wants to know that you are listening to this. And they'll come after you for being a troll anyway. It doesn't matter because they don't care.
Imagine getting a hold of Alex Jones's email list.
Probably a bunch of senators on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean,
anyway, so I think that's a great one because once again, it just validates, verifies, and validates. A little bit of sleep, lots of travel, as I mentioned. 6 different hotels, rooms, places the last 7 nights. Being in airports around a lot of sick people. So stumbling on the words, a little bit dry, but we keep it up because I got the Cellergize AM. We're rocking it and we're still delivering here and appreciate all of you who are on here. Now, yeah, okay, so that was Joe Rogan, right? And I remember James Bowder and I were having a quick text conversation. Remember, he started the Freedom Convoy, right? He is in America, filed for asylum because they still today have a national warrant for his arrest across Canada. And that national warrant for his arrest is because he started the Canadian Freedom Convoy. That's it, right? Then they took everything. They took all his property. They took all they owned, bank accounts, like mine, like other people, like all this other stuff, persecuted and prosecuted. So he can't come back to Canada or he'll immediately be arrested and go into jail for 15 years. Right. And I remember we were talking about somebody else who's doing something freedom-wise here. Looks like a really good guy, freedom-wise over in Alberta. And he's like, he can't talk about the Chinese military, in Canada. You don't want to. And I gave him a couple of things like, well, the Chinese military in Canada, there is a lot of embedded. Now, remember, if anybody doesn't know, that China was via NATO, via United Nations, listed as an enemy, for North America. This is going back like 2010, 2005, right? Like, no, they're an enemy state. But they came onto Canadian soil up in the Arctic. They did drills and practice and field training exercise with the Canadian military personnel. They've been filmed in Salt Spring Island, on Vancouver Island, if anybody knows that area. For those who made it out there, there's a lot more. There's been reports which have come out by intelligence agencies proving that. And here again today, just for verification for everybody, it was reposted by Matt Alexander on X at the World This is the World Military Games. And this is a nice little throwback where he says, remember when the Canadian military saluted the president of China in Wuhan? It was the Military World Games. North Korea and Canada were the only nations to perform the salute. No one else did. Canada remains a threat to North American security. And that's why you need to have the Canada Crown Corporation abolished, and it comes back to a sovereign nation as part of America and the Republic, to which it was acceded in the first Constitution of America, November 15th, 1777. Here's that clip, by the way, in case anybody wants to see that.
That were there in Wuhan broke step with our allies, the United States, France, and proudly saluted the communist dictator Xi Jinping as they marched past him. Saluting in the military is a show of deference and respect. Do you think the despotic menace Xi Jinping...
So, as a former member of the Canadian Infantry, myself, what do you see here once again? And this was on broad mainstream TV news. There's the Canadian flag. And there you have members of the Air Force, members of the Army, and members of the Royal Canadian Navy. And whoever is holding the flag, right behind the flag, you can see that officer with the Royal Canadian Air Force uniform on, saluting.
Jinping is worthy of deference and respect from Canada's valiant armed forces, no less. If not, well, you're in line with our allies. They refused to salute him as Jinping sat observing the pageantry of the official opening of the 7th CISM Military World Games. The United States, Germany, South Korea, Finland, France, Greece, and even Iran refused to salute him. Now that says something. But then came the military athletes from the North Korean contingent. As they marched past the communist president of China, the stadium of Chinese nationals broke out in cheers, in roaring applause, as the recluse nation saluted their closest ally, China. Canada honored the Chinese tyrant in the exact same manner as the North Koreans. They marched synchronized and proud to show admiration and respect for their Chinese hosts in a way that was unmatched by any military contingent other than the Chinese and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea themselves. The United States, in contrast, were walking unenthusiastically at best, and one member even blew a bubble of chewing gum while being featured on the Chinese state cameras. Others took cell phone selfies, chatted, and laughed, probably at the sheer hilarity of the Chinese propaganda that they were taking part in.
There you have it. Powerful. Powerful, right? Well, it doesn't end there. Let's just continue down. For anybody in the elbows of the crowd, anybody who is supporting the politics, once again, many, ticks, parasites. I mean, this one, by the way, don't have any kids in the room. This is from British Columbia. Let me just cue it up here. Earmuffs on the kids. Right now in Canada, a male who raped a 3-month-old and drowned a 3-year-old is serving time in a female prison with moms and their small children. While in prison, the British Columbia government paid for him to get breast implants. Here's a clip of that interview, March 11th.
If your kids are watching, maybe pause this for a moment. This man raped a 3-month-old who required reconstructive surgery, and he drowned a 3-year-old. And he was still a teenager when this happened. But he was put in prison. Then while in prison, the British Columbia government paid for him to get breast implants. And because he's now identifying as a woman, they transferred him into the Fraser Valley Penitentiary for Women. And in our female prisons in Canada, there are units with moms with their small children. Up to a certain age, they can have their kids with them. So they have this separate unit. This man was placed right next door to that unit. And while he's been there, he has, of course, assaulted a woman.
Is he still there?
Yeah. So I went to Victoria, the capital, to meet with the Minister of Education about this. He wouldn't meet with me. I just say, I'm going to go. We'll see what happens. I went to meet him. He wouldn't meet. I actually walked into his campaign headquarters. I stumbled upon it. There were all these new Democratic Party members. It's called the NDP. They're far left party, and they are our ruling party in BC. And I talked to this woman at the desk. Her name's Grace Lohr. I didn't know who she was. I just walked in and started telling her all about this child abuse, of child transition, all about puberty blockers, everything. And for about 10 minutes, Everyone in this building fell quiet and they listened to me basically give this 10-minute speech to this woman listening to me at the desk. I told her all about the child abuse, and then I got to this women in prison story, and I told her about this man. His name's Adam Labukin. I told her exactly what I just told you. And when I was telling that story, another politician shut me down. She said I was making them feel unsafe. And I was telling this story as calm as can be, like I always do. But that made them feel unsafe. 3 times I was told that, and they kicked me out.
This was your elected official.
Yes. I came back the next morning to try to meet with the Minister of Education again. They locked me out. I have subsequently told this story online in great detail. Grace Lohr, that woman I was speaking to, who became the Minister of Children and Family Development. What I didn't know at the time I first spoke with her, she was a former gender studies professor at the University of Victoria. So when I told this story on Twitter and I tagged her, she responded, proudly stating simply, I stand with the transgender community. And this is going on in several U.S. states. Washington state is worse than British Columbia.
What's happening in Washington state?
At the age of 13.
And there you have it. That's Billboard Chris on the Lila Rose Show. And it's continuing. And that is right now. Live. Right now. Okay. So we mentioned about the 2.2 million Canadians on food stamps. Well, Carnage was giving out 100,000, and still is, by the way, $100,000 to foreign students. We've had Norman Traversy multiple times report, and others report, like walking around Ottawa. Guys have UN debit cards, up to $4,400 a month on UN debit cards, doing nothing, dressed really well, just hanging out on the streets, while veterans, and Norman actually gave the Royal Canadian Navy veteran homeless on a street, gave him money out of his own pocket. Remember, Norman's was shut off by the government, and he's still donating money to homeless people. Amazing man. And these guys are walking around. They got new cell phones, new flashy clothes, everything, right? Well, this perfectly sums it up on this this video from Ryan Garrettson, once again on X. Canadians preparing for their dinner and getting prepared for it. Here it is. You're going to love it. 12 seconds. There you go. Inflation and shrinkflation is real, he says, right? We want to play once more. Yeah. Let's take them. Because as we saw last week, it's $150 for a kilogram of steak in Toronto. And as I showed you, here it is once again, it's $72 for a watermelon at the Calgary Co-op in Alberta. $72 for a watermelon, everybody. There it is, $18.28 for a quarter slice. Do the math. Multiply that by 4. Soul Trolls don't know how to math. So yeah, multiply it by 4, $72, right? Yeah. $18 times 4. Hello. There we go. Anyway, so let's continue on, right? Video brand new. Just came out. This is another funny one. I appreciate it. National Roast. Great account on X to go follow. This just came out just a few hours ago last night. And I think you're going to have a great laugh because remember, humor can kind of cut through some of the noise. And this is what's coming April 13th for anybody who is still living up in China. Here we are. National Roast. Got everything queued up.
Saying men aren't women, jail. Non-sanctioned journalism, jail. Denying climate change, definitely jail. Criticizing the liberal government, jail right away. Questioning the 215 grave narrative, jail right now. Spicy memes, jail. Reciting Bible verses, straight to jail. Saying men aren't women, jail. Non-sanctioned journalism, jail. Denying climate change, definitely jail. Criticizing the liberal government, jail right away.
There you go. Right. You have it. So great job for everybody putting that out there. We really appreciate it. And once again, this SAS cartoon. Now, Ben Garrison is a great artist. I've noticed his stuff for decades in the States, does a fantastic job. SKS cartoon, like Saskatchewan cartoon, has a perfect example to summarize it because of the Stockholm syndrome that people have, right? And while I might be saying Canada, because I was born on the land of America in what is known as the subsidiary corporation, Ontario, back in the day, we're all Americans. But we have so many people who have Stockholm syndrome around the world, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all the way up to Sweden, across the EU, as you saw. This is a perfect summary of that in 2 images. And they say Canada is like a victim of domestic violence who refuses to leave her abusive relationship because she's too proud to admit she made some really bad choices. And over here on the left, you have President Trump with the 51st state holding it, saying, come live with me. And then you have a beat up, terribly abused woman being held by the hair, probably by you know who there. And then the girl says in the second one, no, at least he gives me free euthanasia is crossed out and healthcare. That's where people are at right now, right? And that's what we've got. And it's absolutely powerful. Yeah, Pastor Nick in here. Don't want that nasty lab created seedless watermelon anyway. Yeah, very likely, right? Because you have the food grade meats in certain areas, which are now done as clone meats. And why people don't want that, that's entirely up to them. That's entirely their choice. But allow the rest of us to go, all right, well, we can read, just black and white, plain English, read. We are American, and we'll have all of those amendments protecting us. Let's get it on. Let's go. Let's rock it, right? Let's do this. Let's have incredible times. Because, by the way, what's going on, right, which have been called out for years. Let me just remind people around the world who are still into the Green New Deal type of aspect of it. There's 700 barrels of oil required for 1 windmill. And here, by the way, is what it looks like if one of them malfunctions and catches fire. So a 2-ton post reads from Abergax 2-megawatt mill. A 2-megawatt windmill is made up of 260 tons of steel, which requires 300 tons of iron ore and 170 tons of coking coal, all mined, transported, and produced by hydrocarbons. It holds 700 gallons of oil and hydraulic fluid. And like a car, these need to be replaced every 9 months. People might fall for the idea that we can merrily run on sunshine and breezes alone, but with a few $1 trillion worth of mythical mega batteries providing backup for a few minutes, it could spin until it falls apart over and over and over again and never generate as much energy as was invested in building. And what's on top of that, too, is the environmental damage, which is done by the oscillating fans, the vibrational frequency. It actually distorts birds, wildlife, and insects and bees. And entire windfill farms actually have been measured and created disastrous effects upon humans who live in there as well. And you can go ahead, go research it. Find out the harmful effects of windmill farms on humans living around it. And enjoy that little rabbit hole, because you are going to be absolutely ticked off. I can't give everything to everybody all the time, right? You know, but here it's there, right? And we're talking about Save the Bees. We just did an incredible amount to save the bees. So somebody says, Garner, how much does he give it to? Yeah. So what we also have too, by the way, is an opportunity to return to a type 1 civilization. Tartarian energy, free energy, incredible water, incredibly clean air. We have the ability to harness the power of the water molecule. Rep. Tim Burgett was just saying that about oil today. And that's Congressman Tim Burgett. So let's talk about the oil for a second. If anybody goes, oh, Iran, they're doing this, and the oil prices, the gas is rising at the pumps. How many times over your entire life for decades have you ever noticed that the cheapest time to buy gas for your car is Tuesday or Wednesday, and it always goes up on the weekend? They always increase it, and then they decrease it for the demand to try to fluctuate their revenues, right? Congressman Tim Burchett called it out in a big way just today. Well, it was last night. I reposted it today on our X account. Listen to this, because he breaks it all down, and then he also tells us that Well, I think he's giving us a calm that the free energy via the water molecules to harness everything, homes, vehicles, whatnot, is coming. And we know that that's been created. We had a kid in Africa who created one just a few years ago. I don't know where that kid is now, unfortunately, because hopefully he wasn't taken off the scene in a malevolent way, because you've got free energy from water that comes out of your tap. Here's Congressman Tim Burchett. Don't trust me. Here, listen to him tell you all about the oil, the diesel, and this pricing scam.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. Just filled up the dually with diesel yesterday. I decided to do that instead of sending my daughter to school next year. But the reality is, I mean, they're ripping us off. Diesel is like the second cut they take off it when it comes out of the ground. I think it goes kerosene and diesel and then gasoline, and diesel is the most expensive. And I'm sure they can make a...
So when oil comes out of the ground, what he said is diesel's the second cut. They've got kerosene and then diesel coming out of the oil off the ground. And remember, oil is not a finite resource. It doesn't come from dinosaurs. It is the second most available liquid on Earth beyond water. So supply, demand, reserves, is it running out? That's also been proven.
Some sort of, they'll bring out the economic experts, another to cover themselves on that. Another thing that really ticks me off about it is that they've, when the price of oil, like they say, well, it's this whatever happens overseas is causing this to happen. But then when you go to the hardware store or the auto parts store and you buy a quart of oil, guess what? The price hasn't gone up. The price of the gasoline in the tank is going up, and that's gasoline that is probably months from it was in the ground, and then it was converted into gasoline at a refinery. So the whole thing is just ridiculous. It's greed, and eventually we're going to come to a point in technology, say coal turning coal into oil and gasoline, as the Germans did during the Second World War. But guess what? The technology hasn't advanced since then. It's still cheaper just to get oil out of the ground than to convert coal, which we have a lot of. And how much oil does America get from Iran? Zero. That's how much. This is a scam, and these oil companies, shame on them. They're using this opportunity to make record profits once again. So, you got to ask yourself, even if we were getting it, what about the stuff that's already in the pipeline, that's already been paid for, the gasoline that's in the tank at your neighborhood filling station? How does it go up exponentially when something happens overseas? It's a scam. Gasoline goes up like a rocket and it comes down with a parachute and it never gets back down to where it should be. Technology, all that technology in the world, we're going to eventually figure out how to crack that hydrogen molecule and run our cars off of water, I think. I don't care what the scientists tell you right now. They tell you all this stuff. It's, well, the man couldn't run a 4-minute mile, can't go 100 miles an hour in an automobile, you can't breathe. We're not going to go to the moon. Tim Burchett's not going to get elected to Congress. You hear all those things. Guess what? They happened. Anyway, thank y'all for sending me here. Pray for our country.
Well, amen to Congressman Burchett for all of that. I think he's one of the great guys that are in there. Now, when I was telling you, and you can go back to my shows for the last 4 years, right? Every now and then I'm like, well, what are you excited for? Ascension. We're excited. We have an uplifting of consciousness across the planet and our universe in the galaxy. We have ascension and returning. I'll always say returning to a type 1 spacefaring civilization. That's where we have been on this planet. Us, our human race, you, me, we have been there before. And this is what we're returning to, right? Shielding Americas is a part of that, because you have to have the peace and the prosperity in order to allow for the open public development, and then the programs to allow for that to be educating society on maybe how to use portals and portal from one place to the next, or get on a ship that has anti-gravitics and can immediately zip you somewhere, right? This is part of that plan. It all is part of the plan in bringing it back to and getting us to one nation under God. Remember, on May 17th, so two months, just 2 months and 5 days away from now, it's March 12th, May 17th in Washington, D.C., they're rededicating America to Christ. How amazing is that? One nation under God. Likely, it's the original nation where Christ had walked. But that'll be for a different episode. But we're definitely going to be sharing some stuff that will make you pause and go, perhaps America really is where Christ was born. Wow. What if? What if, right? And if not, and you don't believe it, that's totally fine too. We've got to be open to all that information and the potential for things that we don't know. That's the real important thing. You know, there's a lot we know that we don't know. And when you get the normies are like, it's only this way, because they can't handle that. They can't expand their consciousness. They don't have their consciousness. When I talk about returning to a spacefaring civilization, Secretary Sean Duffy of Transportation, U.S. Transportation Secretary, and how amazing would this be for all the Canadians to also incorporate this, right? One whole MAGA, all the way in Mexico, all the way through the Americas, in Australia, New Zealand, and all of our brothers and sisters of the human species. We are one race, regardless of the color of our skin and how we look a little bit different. We're one incredible race imbibed by the prime creator in all the nations. To have something like this, and I have used the expression, you've heard me use the expression, we are living in the Jetson age, because you have phones like this where you can sit here, and me being a guy who started at Research in Motion, BlackBerry, just right after we launched BlackBerry, been there since inception, watched them take a phone and create a phone with the BlackBerry. And then all of a sudden we had the ability to make phone calls on our BlackBerry. We're doing wireless email, and then, you know, seeing apps and seeing pictures, downloaded, sending pictures, whatnot, and going from those green black screens to full color screens to video. So I've lived through that because I worked for that company. And it was amazing to see that evolution. And we are in the Jetson age, because I'm talking to you on a screen, you're talking to me on a screen. We could put a fake background on, just like the Jetsons used to do. And Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, just a matter of days ago on March 9th, released this statement on his X account. The future of flight is here, under at President of the United States POTUS, with 8 new pilot projects as our part of our Advanced Air Mobility Pilot Program. Safely test futuristic aircraft that will radically change the way people and products move. Partners will use these aircraft for all kinds of scenarios, including urban air taxis, regional travel, cargo logistics, and emergency medicine. This will create one of the world's, all caps he puts, world's largest testing environments for next generation aircraft in states all across America. It all begins this summer. What's this summer? America 250. So enjoy this video. I think it's incredible promotional video.
All of this new technology, these eVTOLs that are going to take people from one airport to the next and beyond that, these Ubers in the air. We have a president, we have a DOT that want to see those innovators innovate in America and then export them around the world. eVTOLs are going to make the airspace far more interesting and far more fun, and we have to be prepared for that and seamlessly implement their involvement in using the NAS. This is a time when we don't know how the world is going to change, but it's going to change in the way people and products move, which is exciting. I'm excited for what the future holds. Let's win the future.
And hopefully that'll be announced and come right out with it on the American 250, July 4, 2026, 250 anniversary of the incredible Republic of America, one nation under God. And you've got the Indy for the first time, your 1.7 mile race around the nation's capital in Washington with 7 turns. And that Indy is happening. I think it's August 7th. That's going to be freaking incredible. America 250. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that? I mean, you have to be completely closed-minded and completely of a deep state mindset to not be part of peace, prosperity, and wealth. And of course, on the last point on wealth, silver and gold and what you're seeing in precious metals is incredible because this is the last month of the COMEX silver deliveries on the public registries that they have. And it's being vaporized. Now, again, economics, pretty simple, supply and demand, right? If you got 50 people who are thirsty for water, they can't get water anywhere, and you have one bottle of water, people are dying of thirst, and they have money. Do you think that you can auction off that bottle of water to the highest bidder? Yeah, that's supply and demand. And when you're sitting here and you're having the derivatives and the papers markets that are going like this, and the demand is going like this, right? It's dropping. I mean, it's skyrocketing the demand. And they're just dropping the inventories out of the back going, okay, so more silver delivery notices, more silver delivery notice. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the quadrillions of derivatives and the debts that's going to go boom? Be prepared. Not a financial advisor nor a medical director or a medical doctor, and I never want to be one, or an investment advisor. I'm just a sovereign, living, breathing man on the land. And I would say that with God's money, it would be important to have some of God's money. And what's important too is we can't enjoy that if all of the bees are going extinct. In fact, as you saw with my episode with Brent from 4RBs just a few days ago, it aired. We actually got hit. So 100% there's suppression going on this episode. Now think about this. We're trying to air the episode for the 4RBs. I'll show you up here. You can see it's on YouTube. Here's the Rumble link. I'll show you in a moment. Right, you can just find that. Because when there's no bees, then there's no food, and then there's no us, no planet, no world. That's it. Bees are gone. Well, bees are going extinct. Honeybees were added to the endangered species list last year, right? And people can go on and they can see that for themselves. Here, yes, several bee species have been added to the endangered lists in the US and internationally due to population declines from habitat loss, pesticides, and disease. Well, what are some of those pesticides, right? Could it be the cadmium, radium, barium, aluminum, strontium, which is being sprayed in the atmosphere with all those perfect tic-tac-toe clouds? Totally natural. Everybody remembers them growing up, right? Not. Yeah, absolutely. Plus, obviously, it comes down in the rain. Plus, obviously, putting the glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is cancer-causing and killers, into the fertilizers, which destroys the land that everything grows on, and then it genetically alters the food that you have, and then it also harms the bees. So I would encourage you, literally, this is one for the world. It affects everybody and everything in the world. Here is that show. No bees, no food, no future. The quantum solution nobody saw coming, and will President Trump and MAHA use it? And right now, we only have 3,000 views in that show in 2 days. To me, that's ridiculous. Like 3,000? Oh, it doesn't talk about war, or it doesn't talk about silver, or crypto, or gold, or it doesn't talk about if we're going to be the 51st state, or it doesn't talk about military tribunals, which we all need, and all this kind of stuff. Those are all up here. And what's down here is our ecosystem, which allows us to create foods which we need. None of you have learned how to be breatharians right now. None of you can live year after year by looking at the sun in the morning and the night and only drinking a glass of water once every 2 to 3 months. None of you can. So you need food. And on top of that, we also need an ecosystem to live in. And right here, those bees are 100% responsible for our planet, our food supply. If they go, the environment goes, the seas go, we go. That's it. That show is the 100% most important show, in my opinion, in terms of the impact that it can generate across the planet. Right here. So I'd encourage every one of you, get it, share it, listen to it. When it's eventually up on Apple podcast platforms over the next week, it'll be there too, but watch it, listen to it, because this is quantum technology with this pure wave cell. Here it is. And this is what it looks like using sacred geometry and magnets. So just like was inspired by Tesla, when you open up your pure wave cell, you got a nice pamphlet for our bees. Thank you. And it says, by supporting for our bees, you are funding a global movement that is saving the bees with pure wave technology and also improving foraging and biodiversity while providing sustainable economic development for independent beekeepers. So remember, they took the cell, and you even got a manual on how to use it. Pretty simple. And made in Canada, Ontario, Meaford, where I did, just down the road from Area Training Center, Meaford, Canadian Armed Forces. Goes back to World War II, that center. Here it is. It's incredible. So you have this in wild, amazing electromagnetic field, which is given off by the 12 magnets, which are leveraging the sacred geometric frequency and the flower of life inside it. And we go through the studies, whether it's Trent University to the University of Waterloo and all the way through with Carolean photography that you can see on this magnet, and how bees that had this in their hive when they were hibernating over the winter, they produced 3 to 5 times more honey that next year. And those hives were thriving. They were overflowing. They actually had to split the hives, put in another queen bee, create a new hive, and move bees over there because they were completely thriving. And then people sleeping on this. So I've been leveraging this, putting it, literally tucking it under the pillow at night, sleeping on it, having another amazing sleep. And you charge your food with this, so you can put it under any plastic, even water you buy at the store. We go through the studies in Quebec. They had bought and purchased, and they sent this off to chemical labs, so it's all there in the show. In Quebec, they had bought produce, right, like bananas and lettuce and tomatoes. And they had 13 different strands of E. coli and staphylococcus in 5 minutes. They placed it all in the pure wave cell, and it was abated, nearly 100% gone in 5 minutes. The food from your grocery store in the produce section with all that bacteria and staphylococcus and all the other stuff that they're probably spraying on it, right? Or people are coughing on it with their hands. So you definitely want to take care of yourself that way. So that's a pure wave cell at 4RBs. And of course, you go to that show. If you choose to do any of this, you get 20% discount from us with the code. All of that is underneath that show. The important thing is that you let frequency be thy medicine. That's a direct quote from Einstein. If you don't want the cell, you can also buy the honey, and it ships all around the world. So what they do with the honey is the honey comes from the bees, their hives that were in the pure wave cell, produce 3 to 5 times more. So it's extremely high vibrational. We also show pictures of this under the Carolean photography too. So you have high vibrational food, extremely nutritious. And remember, this is creamed honey. Never pasteurized, it's all natural. It comes direct from the hive. And I have my little stick here so I could show you what it's like. Yeah, just so you know, I learned this many years ago. I think it was part of the Reiki training, just like as an aside to the Reiki training. I got a stick here. That's what I was fishing out. I was moving over. You don't put aluminum in honey, because what aluminum does, and that's the forks and knives and spoons we've been eating off of, right? You know, aluminum tin cups and cans. You don't want to do that. I remember they do that to us in the military, the aluminum canteen cups. I guess it was necessary, but they don't use steel anymore. But you do not touch honey with aluminum, because the aluminum frequency will neutralize the enzymes of your honey. Wood. So this is a chopstick, and it just happened to be in the kitchen when I arrived here last night. I'm like, great, that's how I'm going to scoop out my honey and eat it. So it's got all these incredible enzymes. This is the 4RBs. Creamed honey, ships anywhere in the world. And now you've got wood, and then you just have your honey. Awesome. Every morning, have some honey. Very good for you. Remember, they flipped the food pyramid upside down. And thanks to RFK Jr., he flipped it the right side up, right? And all the research shows in our DNA going back 55,000 years including the great Dr. Neil Perlmutter back in the early 2000s. I read his book, Wheat Belly and Grain Brain. He shows over 55,000 years of DNA study, we are fats first, proteins second, and light carbohydrates, but carbohydrates from tubers, right? Which are like potatoes, for example. Tubers next. So X39 frequency, that activates the God molecule, and there's supply chain reaction because it activates copper peptides in your bloodstream. And when you activate copper peptides in your bloodstream, that activates your God molecule, and then that activates a third of your genome. How amazing is that? Less than Starbucks a day. I take this. This has been saving me as well from all the people around me, because you're tying into quantum consciousness, even though I still meditate virtually every day, depending on the travel. Sometimes can't find a quiet spot for 20-minute meditation, and people are poking you, right, if you're on a plane or something. And then the restore for your gut health. So there's lots of choices here, right? Because yes, the picture painted for our society can be bleak in certain ones, but on other ones, like you saw with the Jetson age, like you've seen with the pure wave cell, you've seen with X39 and catching the life wave, and you've seen with the root nutrition, there are incredible savants who are here for us for this time to provide the way forward for all of us out of the matrix, which has been fully set up to suck your soul, time, energy, money. That's an acronym for system. To suck your soul, time, energy, and money, the matrix system that the bad people set up to enslave all of us. And there are incredible avatars and savants who have already got these available for all of us and to help the world. And it's an amazing time to be alive when you do that. So fantastic. Hey, great to see Kim. Thank you very much as well. Netherlands, awesome to be checking in. I appreciate that. Pastor Nick talking about, yes, they're doing it by design. Exactly. You don't want to eat the bugs. You want to enjoy the honey, which comes from the incredible bee. And by the way, what's amazing too about the bees, right? They're said to be potentially interdimensional because of what they do. But when you look at honey, as I shared with Brent on this show, honey can survive for thousands and thousands of years in a jar. So let's get this show to, go from 3,000, like 12,000 over the weekend, to no bees, no food, no future. Kids need to be aware of it, getting kids involved. It's very powerful to help heal the planet and also ourselves, right? And what's happening in silver and gold, you go long on that. I don't think you're going to have to be long to wait to see it go massive through the roof wherever you are. But if we have no planet, no ecosystem, no bees, we're not going to be able to enjoy that well. So we also have to do our own and just bring our awareness up as well, and how you can help out for free with the bees. Kids love them too. It's pretty cool. Wild research. Thank you so much, everybody. And stay tuned for Senate Sunday. Another great show dropping. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. We'll see you later.
Thanks for joining us on the program, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, follow, subscribe, share this with 9 friends and family. And of course, if you enjoy our blinged Buddha firing red pills from his 9mm, let us know.